right, thank you so much for staying with us. Time now for To The Point. And tonight on To The Point, we break down a rather complex topic, that is child custody and maintenance. Now, let's start here by establishing who a child is. Now, the Children's Act of 2001, same as the one for 2022, as Miss Anita here, our advocate, just corrected me on that, refers to a child as a human being below the age of 18 years. Now, the Act also says that custody with respect to a child means so much of the parental rights and duties that relate to the possession of the child, while on the other hand, legal custody means so much of the parental rights and duties in relation to possession of a child are conferred upon a person by a custody order. Now, let's take a look at our next slide here. And according to the law, every child is supposed to receive care and support from the parent, and the parents are expected to provide for the child whether they are married or not. Child support can be filed by either a parent, a guardian, or a custodian of the child, and some organizations can help you file for child support. So this next one is interesting because we take a look at some of the lengths that parents go through to simply be with their children. Now, an Ecuadorian man changed his gender to help him win custody of his daughters. His official documents now list his new gender identity as femenino, that is female, yes, female. Renny Salinas Ramos, aged 47, said the laws in his country favor mothers over fathers when it comes to children's custody battles. Let's quote him here because he says, "I am very sure of my sexuality. What I have sought is that I want to be a mother so that I can also give the love and protection of a mother." Let's pause there, okay? Let's pause there because at this point I want to engage my guests who are with me in studio. Mr. Joe Sampson, who is a father, Mr. Michael Onyango, member, Men Engage Alliance, that is Khmer, and executive director of Men Against AIDS in Kenya, and of course, Miss Anita Masaki, who is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. Karibuni sana, lady and gentlemen. And I must mention, we shall be joined by Dorothy Omolo, a counseling psychologist, later on, in this broadcast, okay? So I want us to react to this. This is a man. He had to change his gender to a woman just so he could gain custody of his children. My goodness, where do I start? Joe, Mr. Joe.
Basically, thank you for having me in this show. Let me start by saying that shows how emotive this issue of child custody is. It's a very serious issue that affects mostly cutting across both the parents and the children. So when you see to this extent a man going to extent of going an extra mile of changing his sexuality to basically get the custody, the legal custody of our daughters, is one very clear indication that this topic is quite such an emotive one and a very serious topic.
Right.
Yeah.
Mr. Michael, what do you make of this? I'm curious.
Okay, it's quite interesting, given that like presented, the laws in that country is actually very, very inclined to women getting the child support. But we are lucky in Kenya that at least the law is fair. And in a situation where the law finds that the man can actually be given custody of the child, then it happens that, like the judgment that was done. But also, you find that many men who are actually close to their children and want to continue being closer to their children would revert to that extreme to actually be closer to the children.
I want to ask something. This is an unfair question, but it has come from you. So, would you do it if you got to that point, if push came to shove?
And that's the reason why I said it's an action that is quite extreme, because I wouldn't go that far. I would respect the judge's decision.
All right.
And probably also engage the court in a discussion where I would also have rights to the children.
Right.
Because biologically, if they are my children, they'll continue to be my children.
That's true.
And the love that I show them, I can show them even while they are with their mother. Yeah, because that love does not die. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Miss Anita, is the situation that bad in some countries?
Actually, this is quite interesting. Which country is this? If
This
I
is
may ask?
Ecuador.
Ecuador.
Yes.
For Kenya, and I can say for Kenya, we are a bit very fair, like Mr. Michael said. Children can, either parent can have custody of the children. That can, the father, the mother, they're entitled to have custody of the children under special circumstances. So I'm wondering in Ecuador, what do their laws look like? Because if a father can go to an extent of changing the sexuality for him to get custody of the daughters, I think they need to amend their laws.
Right, that's true. It's quite something. All right, and you mentioned home, that is Kenya, and let's come to Kenya. Now, in April 2022, a High Court judge, Joel Ngugi, made a landmark ruling where a man was awarded custody of his children after his wife divorced him during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, Justice Joel Ngugi said the law was not necessarily in the best interests of the child, and if we could quote him, he did say in most cases in this scenario, as in our country here, most fathers lose custody of their children because of gender considerations. That is Judge Joel Ngugi when he made a landmark ruling that indeed fathers can also have custody of their children. Again, I want us to react to this. We have alluded to it, of course. We seem to be progressive as a country. But again, now let me start with you, Anita.
Yeah.
What did you make of this?
For me, I think this is a very good case. It can be a locus classicus case. Because you see the Children Act says children of tender years meaning 0 to 9 years, are best fit to be in the custody of their moms. But from this ruling and many others that are not reported maybe for the public, dads have had custody of their children as well. There are special circumstances under which a man can have custody of the children. If I may say some, maybe if the mother is an extreme alcoholic, drunkard, maybe there's cases of neglect and abuse on the children, and then the best fit person to get custody is now the father. Yeah, so I think for me this is a very good ruling.
Right.
Yes.
Mr. Michael?
I also appreciate that the man was given that opportunity of actually getting the custody of the children, because for reasons that my colleague has correctly put, you find that at times children also need to be listened to, because they'll actually express who they feel they would be happy to stay with. And I think probably the judgment listened to the children and actually respected that the children also had a right and say in whoever they wanted to stay with. Yeah.
And I'm happy you've mentioned that, because we shall get to that. I'm actually wondering whether we should get to it later or just discuss it right now. Because let me just ask you, Miss Anita, I mean, if a child says, I want to be with my mom, I want to be with my dad, for instance, there's that phrase, the best interests of the child. I mean, how does the court go about that? Because does what this child wants, is it really considered?
Yes, because when the court is at a crossroad, or rather it needs for them to make the best decision, one, they can interview that child. There's that provision. Either parent or the court can ask for the children to be brought to court for a court interview. They can speak to the judge. And then because of the best interest of the child, this child is best placed. Their experiences and maybe what they have gone through or what they have seen their parents, maybe in a scenario where there is a lot of violence, these children are better placed to guide the judge and tell them, I want to be with my father or I want to be with my mom. And in the Children Act, there are those compelling reasons and the factors that are considered before custody order is made, one of which is the ascertainable wishes of a child. So for me, yes, the children's point of view rather is very much considered, because it is them who are going to be placed with a certain parent, and they need to be safe first, and for them to be comfortable and to enable them grow as children. Yes.
Let me play the devil's advocate here. I really don't like using that word. But then how does the court rule out, say, bribery, threats, or intimidation to the child?
It can tell.
From
because
either
you see,
parent.
When you speak to a child, you can outrightly tell if this child has been coached, one, or maybe their parent has threatened them. If it's in a case of a father, if you go to your mom, I will not pay your school fees, I will not give money, or for whatever reasons. You see, mostly children are very, I don't know if I can say timid or being honest. Let me say just honest. If you speak to a child and they've been coached, somehow you will tell. Yeah, because by the time even the court is calling this child to be interviewed in the court, there are children officers who have visited the homes. They have spoken to these children, they have spoken maybe to the teachers in school. So there's that habit. So they have managed to come up with an informed decision. So yes, in cases of threats and intimidation, the court will usually pick it up. Right. Yes.
Okay.
And even the children will actually innocently say, Daddy alisema DC.
Yeah.
Nikizungumza hivi hata nilipia shule ama hata nipatia kitu fulani.
Right.
Yeah.
Reminds me of when you tell a child to tell whoever is coming to say that you're not at home, and Daddy amesema nikwambie, yeah. All right, Mr. Joe, what was your reaction to this? I'm sure you heard about it.
My reaction is this: I'd like to say that the basic principle of child custody is based on the fact that both parents have an equal obligation. They have a responsibility to take care of the children, both parents. So if the law says that both parents have equal responsibility in taking care of the children, that means that is a law, and there is the interpretation of the law. And typically, to add on that, typically, each and everyone among the parents has a duty. Everyone has a duty to take care of the children, irrespective of sex. For instance, a mother is expected to pay child support to a mother, just as a father must pay child support to a mother. So when we talk about this topic of child custody, as I initially said, it's a very sensitive topic, and it's a very emotive one, because it cuts across the feelings of the parents, it cuts across the reaction of the children and the society too. Because as you can very well understand, we live in a society. These are children, the parents have broken down, the relationship is no longer there. There are children that are in the picture, and now there is the issue of separation. The biggest question that we should be asking ourselves is, can a child really bear the burden of divorce? Can a child carry the burden of divorce? At most times, we parents tend to take our children through very difficult times with something which, if considered, it should not be the norm. Because naturally, a child should have both parents, the mother and the father. So when these differences arise, it's not the wish of any parent, it's not also the wish of any child to be brought up in a family that is separated. So what am I saying? If the law says that both parents have an equal responsibility of bringing up the children, irrespective of whether they are married, divorced, separated, or even never live together, that is one fact that each and every parent should understand and know, that the responsibility of a child lies squarely to both parents.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was a landmark ruling there by Justice Joel Ngugi last year, 2022. And so tonight, on to the point, we seek to answer questions such as who goes with the children after divorce? What are the grounds for custody of a child? And what are the rights of a father to his child? And so on. That's the conversation we're having tonight, which has already kicked off, by the way. And remember, I did mention at some point we're going to be joined by counseling psychologist Dorothy Omolo, who's pretty much going to answer questions like what Mr. Joe here has asked on can a child bear the burden of a divorce, all right? So, Ms. Anita, I want to start with you. I mean, we've pretty much listed or mentioned what custody is, what legal custody is. We've talked about a lot so far. But in a nutshell, just what does the law of Kenya say about child custody and maintenance?
Oh, child custody and maintenance, what people need to understand. When it comes to custody, either parent can get custody. And each parent has equal rights to their children. So it's not cast in stone that custody can go to the father or it can go to the mother. It can go to either of them. And then we need to understand there are two types of custodies. There is the legal custody and there's the physical and actual custody. The legal custody is where both parents are entitled to make decisions when it comes to the welfare of the children. And then physical custody is where which parent gets to stay with the child. Mm-hmm. Yes. So, and maintenance, like I said, maintenance also is supposed to be 50-50. It's equal. I think in 2019 or thereabout, Justice Ali Abideroni, sitting at the High Court Family Division in Milimani here in Nairobi, ruled that parental responsibility is supposed to be 50-50.
Right.
It doesn't mean that the father has to take the lion's share of the responsibilities or the mother has to take lion's share of the responsibilities. It's an equal responsibility between the two parents. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Michael, I shall come to you, but I want to engage Mr. Joe first because Joe, you've been saying, you know, how this is an emotive topic, and it really is. I remember I also said that when I started the show, but I want you to talk to our viewers and tell us your story, Mr. Joe, regarding this, regarding our conversation tonight.
Okay, thank you for this opportunity. Let me say that it was back in 2019, during the COVID-19 pandemic. As you all know that during that time, things really hit families hard. So I happened to lose my job without any communication. And bearing in mind that the situation during that time was very, very, very wanting, I could not be in a position to provide for my family at that time. So this did not go well with my wife. So it ended up bringing several issues that were almost likely unresolved. The same that resorted to having to separate and raise our children separately. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. I want to know more. I mean, are you co-parenting? I mean, how has it been between you and your wife and the children, Mr. Joe?
Okay, we are co-parenting, but the most important thing to note is that we have to accept the situation the way it is, and look for a way out about it, because there are children here that are in the picture. Despite the fact that you and your spouse have a broken relationship, that does not mean that the children must be left to suffer. So in our case, we are doing it very amicably. We have agreed on how we're gonna go about it, and our children are well taken care of by both of us as co-parents. Yeah.
So the two of you, without a third party, sat and decided, you know, this is the kind of support that you, Mr. Joe, will be giving, and your wife, and you get a chance to see your children. I want you to take us through that. Okay,
basically, there are 5 basic needs that the children are entitled to. A child is entitled to the basic right to food, to shelter, to education, to medical provision. So when you take these 5 basic needs of a child, it's plain. A child must have shelter, a child must have education, a child is to have medical provision. So what we did, we had to sit down ourselves. Because when you read and when you understand the court process and how lengthy these court cases might take and the expense and the time, it is advisable for any parent who understands the legal consequences and who also understands the expense and the nature of the litigation process. It's usually very lengthy, it's very consuming, so it's an option. It's an option, but for most parents, it's advisable. Despite the fact that you've broken up with your partner, you should understand this one thing, that resources are scarce. And the thing that you are arguing about, the argument is about the children. Mm-hmm. The children are both yours.
That's right.
So if you have these children, you should come up with a formula yourselves. Because let me say this, there is no any pronunciation, there is no any declaration, there is not even any process, there is not even any surgery that can be undertaken by anybody to detach a child from the physical, emotional care of the both parents. Mm-hmm. So when you have this in mind, it's good to know that despite the fact that you are taking too much time concentrating on who will have custody to which child, either legal or what, at the end of the day, these children need both of you.
Right.
So when you come to understand that, and at that note, and understand that it's natural, a child must have and is required to be taken care by two parents. So when you come to understand that, the easier way is to agreeing between yourself how you're going to manage, right, and walk through that situation.
Right. Mr. Michael, I want to rope you in now. As member Men Engage Alliance, my assumption is your work deals with, a lot of men out there. And I want to know what the experience of most of them in regards to this conversation is, because again, like I said at the start, most of them feel shortchanged. Most of them feel that often the law acts in favor of women as opposed to the men.
Okay, that would be the case, but I think many men usually don't want to be responsible, and they'd feel like freed in a situation where the lady goes with the children, even though they would claim to be shortchanged. I don't know if you get my point.
Mm-hmm. I do.
Because for the case to go to an extent where now both parties are separating, there needs to be a very, very good reason as to why now the two couples are parting. And the reasons, you'd find that in that kind of scenario, both are probably blaming one another. Mm-hmm. Yeah, not considering whatever the child will go through in that separation, as my colleague has correctly put it. Mm-hmm. So you'd find men coming up with lots of excuses, this and that, which doesn't stand. And in other situations, you'll find that they will gladly agree that the woman goes with the children, and they would promise to chip in the maintenance or whatever. But at a later day, they will escape. They'll try to find a way of escaping taking that responsibility. Mm-hmm. And it becomes difficult when now the woman now takes the issue to the court because when it resorts to being taken to court for the man to actually take that responsibility, then it reaches a level where now the court pins the man down and actually helps the lady to get that support that she requires to actually continue with her life. And in our organizations, what we usually do, because we have a program known as Men Care, we try to engage men to actually also get to understand what care is all about as a father. Because at times we take it for granted that being a father is just giving out provisions for the child, buying gifts and paying school fees, paying house rent, but it's actually more than that. Yeah, and that's why we engage with men to be able to understand that fatherhood is not about that. It's more than that.
Right. Presence is better than presence.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting. Yeah. Okay, so that jingle there means we need to take a short break, but stay with us. We come back and carry on with this discussion on child custody and maintenance, and we also engage Dorothy Omolo, a counseling psychologist. Stay with us.
The news that matters the most is the one that hits close to home. When disasters strike, we are there to inform you. When the bullets are flying, we tell you who's shooting and why. Reporting on your victories, your health, your money, your security, your past, present, and future. We are interested in telling the stories of creativity, hard work, and resilience that you are known for. That is our job. This is my job. My name is Victor Muyakane, and it's my honor to bring you this news this way every Thursday night on the home of Untold Stories.
Katika majengo haya, hapa ndipo sheria zinapotungwa na zinapopakuliwa. Nitakuletea viongozi mbalimbali, mirengo mbalimbali, wote kwa pamoja wakipika na kupakua. Tutawapa nafasi kuweza kuangazia changamoto na mafanikio ya ugatuzi katika ukumbi wa siasa kila siku ya Jumanne kuanzia saa 1 kamili na kuendelea.
Toka eneo hili la Naivasha kwenye kaunti 032, gatuzi la Nakuru.
Kutoka kaunti ya Elgeyo Marakwet, kaunti 028.
Nikiripotia runinga ya TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Wajir.
Nikiripotia TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Turukana.
Kwa matukio yote yanayojiri katika kaunti hii 012.
Kutoka kaunti nambari 1, kaunti ya Mombasa.
Nikiripotia TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Lamu.
Nikiripotia TV47 kutoka Kisii County.
Nikiripotia TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Machakos.
Kutoka kaunti hii ya Trans Nzoia.
Kaunti 038.
Kutoka gatuzi nambari 029, kaunti ya Nandi, chemichemi ya mabingwa.
Nikiripotia TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Kakamega.
Itakuwa nikiripotia runinga ya TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Bungoma.
Jina langu ni Paula Munio.
Willy Dennis Jiru.
Fabian Kibet.
Mimi ni Hashim Jimal.
Mimi ni Kitio Mika Masai.
John Javakiania.
Jina langu ni Abdulaziz Nameka.
Mimi ni Kombo Alfayo.
Jina langu ni Nicholas Mbai.
Isaac Famba.
Mimi ni Wanji Sosti.
Jina langu ni Arnold Adidi.
Jina langu ni Chris Bet.
Jina langu ni Violet Auma.
Na TV47 inapotamba, mimi Sheila Chelangat nitakuwa nikiripotia maswala yanayokuhusu wewe kila kuchao. Every Thursday 7:30 p.m. unapata nafasi kufahamu viongozi mbalimbali kutoka humu nchini kuanzia wabunge.
Through Changa, we could get money to pay our rent, pay our bills.
When I was growing up, water was a problem where I was born and bred. We wake up at 3 to go and look for water.
All right, thank you so much for staying with us. We continue with the conversation we've been having on To The Point tonight, child custody and maintenance, with my guests, Ms. Anita Masaki, who is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, Mr. Michael Onyango, member, Men Engage Alliance and Executive Director, Men Against AIDS in Kenya, and of course, Mr. Joe Samson, who is a father. And at this point, we now want to engage Dorothy Omolo, who is a counseling psychologist. Good evening, Dorothy. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Good evening, Grace, and thank you for having me.
Great. So I trust you've been following the conversation, Dorothy, and I'm going to shelve what was to be my first question and ask what Mr. Joe asked here, because he posed a question on, can a child bear the burden of divorce? I want to start with that, Dorothy.
Can a child bear the pain? Let me call it the pain. So again, thank you for the question. The answer is, if it is well handled, if it is well transitioned, then yes, the child can be made to understand how to manage the pain. But if the child is not, transitioned well to the change, then there could be a number of issues to deal with. So yes, it is the children are able to understand and maintain the pain. Yes.
So which begs the question, how can this whole process be well handled, like you said, Dorothy?
Good. So before I get to answer how that can be well handled, I first want to appreciate the family as a unit. It's a very beautiful thing. That is one thing we must get to understand, that family is very beautiful, and family is a very fundamental unit of every society, that is. And in the event that the family is, or rather the union, is no longer serving its purpose, then unfortunately, the inevitable, and that is the separation, always come to play. But now, what is important, especially when the children are involved, is the transition. How are we bringing these children into the picture? So how can this be done into the picture? The children are supposed to be, the parents are first supposed to put the children outside their disagreement. They have to understand that there's a difference between them and their disagreement and the children.
Mm-hmm.
And in this way, the children will be handled as a different entity, as a different unit. Because if they entangle children within their problems, then that is where the transition doesn't look beautiful. That is when you find themselves, running to courts, as one of the panelists have mentioned,
right,
that the court is very expensive. You might not even have the muscles to run to court, each and every other time. So if the transition is not beautiful, first of all, as adults who already have your feud, handle your feud without the attachment of the children. Because when you met, there were no children there. When you had these children, it was out of love. Then, when we are now, or when you are now having your differences, why do you have to involve the children? Let the children not be an attaching factor to you, or rather to your problems. Sort your problems, and if you feel that the union is no longer working, don't wait for the death part. Don't wait to kill each other. When you feel the union is no longer working, now put yourselves down. The adults that you are, put yourself down and now ask, okay, we are moving out. The children are here. Then what next? so that by the time you are apart, if the children decide to go with the mom, if the children go with the dad, even before we get to the aspect of law, this is now the general communication or the understanding that the parents are having within themselves.
Right.
Now you get to understand. Now the children are involved. School fees is supposed to be paid. How about their shelter? How about the basic needs? You understand?
Right.
Now this is an agreement you are having, the two of you as adults, and not involving the children. Not be like, you have to give us rent, you have to pay 1 or 2, 3 because these are your children too. Put the children out of the picture first. Then once you're able to reason logically, then it will be easy for you people to come up with a tentative plan, or even to now involve these children and tell them, let's say the children is John and Mary, or Claire or Rose. Okay, Claire, me and your dad, or dad and mom, will no longer stay under one roof if they are of age of understanding. Because remember, however small the child is, even if the child is 2 years, the child understands.
Right.
They know. And the more the child understands, if they're not able to understand, then because you had agreed as grown-ups, stay apart. For peace of mind, for peace. But as a mother, ensure that the father has an opportunity to see the children. As a father, create time to see and converse with your children.
Right.
Remember, the goal is the two adults are the people to come to conversation with themselves, because they met when they were 2. It's like defining yourself, detach everything else, detach family, and define yourself as a person.
All right.
So solve these issues without involving the children. And then once that is done, the children can be brought into the transition smoothly and slowly. One thing that I might really want to mention is that this thing that people do, that they're staying with people they don't, they're not no longer in relationship with the notion of I'm doing it for my children. My friend, we are destroying these children. I'm sorry to say that. You said that we should not go like the devil's advocate, but I would say, from where I sit, I would say, if it's no longer serving its purpose, please. Because the more you stay under that one roof, and the two of you, the adults, are not in terms, you are passing hatred, you're passing bitterness, you're passing anger, you're passing rebellion
to the child,
to these children subconsciously. Then when these children go to school, they start fighting. When these children go to school, they throw words. When these children go to school, there are different things. And then as a parent, when you're called, you start blaming the other parent in front of these children and the teachers.
Right, Dorothy.
The teachers will tell you that these children open a lot to them.
Okay. I need to interject.
Yes.
I need to interject, Dorothy, because of time. But I'm actually glad you've answered what was to be my next question on age and how it influences how you talk to your children about what's happening. But you have covered that. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dorothy, for joining us tonight. Thank you for your time and your contribution, Dorothy. All right. So I want to come back to my panelists here in studio. And Ms. Anita, I'll start with you because I want us to debunk the right word, that sentence that I've been using on the law, almost, always or often favoring women more than the men, yeah? And I have my defense, which we did have a conversation prior to this interview, the Children's Act, Section 8, indicating that a child under the age of 10 is to be given to the mother unless there is a good reason to do otherwise.
Okay, I beg to differ. Because you see, it's not cast in stone again. Generally, the general assumption is that children are of tender years, tender again being 0 to 9, are best fit to be in the custody of their mother. But again, circumstances from case to case differ. And I've seen where fathers also have been given custody by the court. Yeah. Again, this is because of the special circumstances. Special circumstances being maybe one, maybe death. Maybe the mom has passed on. Two, the mom has been neglecting the children. Maybe three, the mother is a drunkard. And four, which is might surprise you, is because maybe the mother does not have a place of abode. She does not have a known residence. She does not even have a house where these children can stay.
Right.
Yeah. So those are some of the reasons that the court can look as special circumstances for custody to revert to the dad. Yes.
As opposed to the mother, yeah?
Yeah,
All right,
to the mother.
Let's talk child support. And I want to know how it is calculated, say, in Kenya.
There is no formula, actually. What most courts use, there's something called an affidavit of means. An affidavit of means is where the father and the mother can present documents, especially in a scenario where parties have gone to court. The father can present a document, that affidavit of means, maybe sometimes attach their pay slip if they are working, or maybe they're running a business and all, they can be able to quantify how much they earn in a month or how much they make in a month and how much they are willing to use for the children. And of course, looking at their personal expenses as well. Same case applies to the mother. But like I said, the law is that parental responsibility is supposed to be 50-50, equal. It doesn't mean because maybe a mother maybe has a better paying job, it doesn't mean that he will take the lion's share of the responsibilities. It also doesn't mean that if a father maybe has the better paying job, it doesn't mean that he has to take the lion's share of the responsibilities. In this scenario, it has to be 50-50 unless the parents themselves have agreed that the father will do the full school fees, school-related expenses, maybe medical cover, clothing and shelter. And in this scenario, maybe the mother will only provide for maybe nanny expenses and all that. Yeah? So there is no specific formula. It is the capability of the parent. I've seen scenarios where a mother has taken a father to court for child maintenance and they want 100% the father to provide. And then the question is, you as a mother, you have your own responsibility as a parent. What are you willing to provide for this child? Yeah? And then you see they get tongue-tied because maybe they are coming from a point of wrong advice where they've been told that this man has to take care of 100% of the responsibilities, which is wrong. You as a parent, whether you're the mother or the father, you're entitled to provide for these children 50%. Unless, again, like maybe Mr. Michael here wants to take 100% of the bills, unless he has also said that. Yeah, that is also allowed. And then there's a mother who will also say, maybe I just don't need his support in terms of financial help. I only need custody. Yeah, maybe we can get to that. There are some who do not need financial support. They only want custody of the children.
How do you go about that?
So they will be asked, are you willing or don't you want, are you in agreement that you do not want any form of support from him? And they might say yes. And what do you need from the court to give you? Only maybe custody. Yeah, and then the court will rule on custody. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Mr. Michael, I want to engage you on something that I found interesting in my research, again, from your experience with the men. And I like that when I asked you the previous question, you brought about the issue of deadbeat fathers, what we call deadbeat fathers, because it's a question I was to ask. But what do the men say about or regarding how this money that sometimes they give as child support is used? Because I'm asking this because in my research, you found probably, let's take what, 50,000. So a man, say, contributes or gives 50,000 to his wife for their children's upkeep. But this 50K ends up not being for the set, purpose. I want to go make my nails, my hair, and I'm using this money. I don't know, have you encountered such experience?
Yeah, it happens that that's the reason why a lot of men feel pain and at times do not want to contribute to such. And it also contributes to the man also trying to look for other means of not complying with probably the court order and and life becomes difficult for the children, because here again you find that the man would want to take action to punish the woman father, because at times we tend to feel that it shouldn't have happened like that, and it's like now this woman is taking an advantage of the situation to actually milk me dry, you know, and at times nobody wants to part with his cash so easily like that. But since you have committed to support your children, because you know they are your children, that resource is being misused, you wouldn't feel happy about it. And I think that is a situation where a lot of men are also scared about that. Yeah.
All right. Mr. Joe, I want to engage you now, and I want us to talk about children and your children, to be specific. And I must mention that if I get too intrusive, you're free to let me know. You're free to pass, you know, any question that I may ask which might be uncomfortable. But in a nutshell, I just want to know how it's been for them. You know, we've heard from Dorothy how you're supposed to let the children know about what's happening, how they can actually, the question that you asked, can a child bear the burden of divorce? She said they can if it's done the right way, yeah? So I want to know how it has been like for your children, Mr. Joe.
Basically, let me say that when children see that their parents are not relating well, this is one thing that impacts directly into the morale of these children. Let me say that children are very clever. Children take their time. They just don't respond to any other thing that as just a reason. So these children take a lot of time studying you, and they understand everything even before you tell them. So asking how the children really handle it, it's usually not easy for the children. It affects them psychologically. It affects them even physically. It affects in fact, it touches every nerve of this child. For instance, with my example, I have 2 daughters. So when all these things started happening, I came to notice that my daughters were not, they began to withdraw. That is, you find that they were very jovial, they were happy, but after seeing that daddy and mommy are not doing well, they reflect that directly. The one thing that parents ought to understand is that the child will just reflect what you show them directly. They don't know how to manage it. A child does not know how to manage that process. For instance, daddy used to come home every day. And there is another day now daddy does not show up. There is a day now mommy also is leaving the children with daddy. These children have been brought up in a setup where both parents are present. So this is the reason as to why I beg this question. Can children really bear the burden of divorce? Let me say that divorce is a root cause of poverty. Divorce, separation, and cohabiting behavior, those are the 3 pillars of poverty. Why am I saying that? When parents divorce or separate, there's a very big probability that the resources that were meant for the family are diverted to a different channel. For instance, daddy is working and is not living with the children today. There is a very big probability that he finds another woman, probably with children. So what happens? Daddy is separated from the mother. So, and here is another woman who is giving him attention. There is a very big probability that the resources, the food that was meant to be given to his children, go to a different channel. Likewise, when divorce happens or separation, the family, the household is usually at a very dire situation. There is a probability that these children will not go to school.
Right.
There's a very big probability that these children might lack shelter. there is very big probability that these children will lack medical attention. So as I said it requires, like the Bible says, parents and especially fathers should show compassion to their children.
Right.
So in that issue of showing compassion, it's the responsibility of a father to chart the way forward for his family, whether separated or together. Yeah.
All right. And before I get your closing remarks, because Kevin is in my ear telling me we have 3 minutes. Can you believe it? Joe, I want to talk about you as a man, because I remember you saying earlier on that it's important for a child to grow, with both their mother and father around. So when this happened, I mean, did it take a toll on you as a father?
Definitely, it was very difficult for me, because as a father, I love my children very much. And now here is a situation that you're not able to provide as a father. That is one of the biggest challenges that I've come to experience in my life, whereby you have a family. There is one thing that I want men to understand, and women also. When a man is incapable of providing for his family, there are 2 things that are running in his mind. The first thing, the man feels displaced. The second thing is that the man is depressed. And how does a woman see a man who had been providing and is not providing today? There is a combination of 2 feelings. First of all, the woman will feel sympathy for you, but at the same time, she'll be angry at you. So there is a very delicate balance to strike and to balance. So this is one thing that usually affected me. But as I initially said, we had to calm down with my wife. We talk about it. We look for a solution.
All right.
Definitely a solution has to be reached.
Indeed, indeed.
Yeah.
So a minute each. I need to get your closing remarks. I'll start with you, Ms. Anita. And part of it, I want you to answer the question of an unmarried couple, people who are together but are not legally married. Do they need to file for custody?
Yes. This is because, you see, it doesn't matter if you're married or not. At the end of the day, you're both parents to this children or child. So yes, you can file for custody because you're the only best people to take care of your children. Yes.
Right.
And then maybe in my parting shots, like Mr. Joe has said, one thing I've seen, or rather I've observed over time in my practice, is that some parents have not been honest with their children. Like Dorothy said, children observe, children know what is happening exactly, especially where there's a separation and divorce. So I think for most parents, what they need to do even before they start the custody battles and all that, just sit your children down, tell them things are not working out between mommy and daddy, and we have to live separately, but reassure them that they will always be there for the children. Yeah.
Right. Mr. Michael, in a minute, let's get your closing remarks. Some men, on social media, I did see today, they're reporting having their money or gifts returned by their partners on child support. That's a true case, by the way. I'm not going to mention who, but I saw that today on social media.
You mean the gifts that they gave to the...
Yes, like I'm giving something to my child, and then the woman returns that to the man, to the husband, or money for support.
I think in that kind of situation, there are so many issues that remain unresolved in that relationship
between the 2 of them,
and they need to continue working on those issues, especially through counseling. Like the psychologist said, it's a process that requires both parties to sacrifice and probably discuss in depth without the involvement of the children. And for the health of the children, the parents need to understand that the separation is good for both of them, because it has happened. You cannot stay in a relationship that is unhealthy.
Right.
Thank you.
Mr. Joe, you get the final say. In a minute, please.
Let me say that co-parenting is not a bad thing. It ensures that resources are pulled together. It ensures it reduces financial stress for either parents. It ensures that resources are pulled together for the children to have a better and a healthy life. So if one happens to be in such a situation, it's advisable that you just look for a way out, both of you, whether co-parenting or solving your issues and rejoining together in your marriage for the sake of the children.
That's true, for the sake of the children. We all agree, right?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Joe Samson, a father of 2 beautiful daughters, Joe.
Yeah.
Mr. Michael Onyango, member Men Engage Alliance and Executive Director, Men Against AIDS in Kenya. Miss Anita Masaki, an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. And of course, we were joined by Dorothy Omolo, who is a counseling psychologist. She did join us live via Zoom, okay? And thank you to you for watching, for your time, for your company. We always appreciate it. Thank you to the entire crew that made this production